I want to thank you for inviting us to do this chapter too, and also Heather too, who is from the Monterey Institute working here. So I want to also say that the Monterey Institute and International Institute of International Education is very connected to each other. We've sent a lot of students over time as interns, and there's a lot of Fulbrighters at the Monterey Institute and so on. So I'm really, really glad to be here for that reason, to have this connection with you. So having said that, the way I came into women's leadership issues, I wanted to speak to that a little bit. I'm from Turkey originally, and I started looking at women's leadership at the global level, and looking at women's movement and how it started and coalesced around the United Nations, all the global gender, human rights, gender equality, human rights norms, all of that stuff, and how it got into international organizations. So I did that for a while. But then I thought, nobody knows exactly what gender means in a village in Turkey. So it's like, how are these global norms called gender equality? Even in Turkey, there's 3 words to say gender, because nobody knows. And I think in Russian, you know, they had to say gender or something because they didn't know how to say gender in their language. So to me, it was very important to understand how those norms get interpreted and translated at the local level in different cultures. So I went and looked at Turkey and wrote a book called Turkey's Engagement with Global Women's Human Rights Norms, and found out that culture, religion, all these things make a huge difference as to what is meant by human rights, gender equality, all those things. So now I'm like, when we say leadership, what do we really mean by that? I'm still asking this question to myself, and I invite you to ask that question. Global level, at the village level. So one of the things I did that really meant a lot to me, and I think this is sort of similar to what you have done, Beth, is that I evaluated a women's human rights program in Turkey by an organization called Women for Women's Human Rights. And so went to all these different villages, different towns, where women had taken courses on women's human rights. And they had changed their identity, the way they started thinking about the world. But at the same time, they said, if we do this and go back to home, it's still the same husband and the same mother-in-law. And the mother-in-law is even worse. So they said, what about masculinities and what about fathers? And then I realized women's leadership is not enough, that we have to do something else. But their leadership, I think they demonstrate that leadership by starting up new organizations, new grassroots organizations. But again, in Turkish culture, it had to be done together with the local government. It had to be done in partnership with the social administration? Services administration. Because the women were asking the government, the social service workers, social workers, what should we do now? You know, tell us what organization to set up. So there is this whole thing about, okay, leadership, but they still want this connection in a hierarchical society in which they're not used to voice themselves. So there's many different aspects to this leadership that I learned and still trying to learn, still trying to define what this means. While this was happening, Trish approached me and said, how about social entrepreneurship and women as social entrepreneurs? So I thought, okay, great, this is this is also another type of leadership. But I didn't know anything about social entrepreneurship. But guess who did? My friend, who is a professor of social entrepreneurship and creativity and teaches social entrepreneurship. So we joined forces and wrote a chapter on, what's the chapter on?
Social women social entrepreneurs.
Something like that, and hopefully it turned out okay. And with that, I am going to let you go.
Thank you.